App switcher. Pages. Blank. Page. Canvas. Cap D. Caps spec space emphasis spec space new line what spec y exclamation mark new line.
Hi, I'm Carey, and welcome to Climate Conversations and Contexts. It'll be quick and dirty because I'm going to try to get this done in 20 minutes, less than half an hour anyway.
App switcher, pages, Safari, Safari, selected, Safari, toolbar, back, dimmed, button.
You're listening to my device read to me because I'm legally blind, so I can't read you the stuff that's on screen, so it will have to read to you, which is probably for the better because there'll be fewer mistakes. I'm not going to go into the history of that. I've got tons of videos online. As I said, I'm trying to do this quick and dirty so that I can get a video which will be useful to people trying to communicate about the ecology and the sciences and the importance of climate with various different communities. And there's a lot of information about that, and I'm a communicator, so I decided it was about time I created something for not only the Alberta Green Party to use, but perhaps larger community of my Green Party colleagues.
Link. Image.
So we're starting with the Climate
Actions
Outreach
available. No
website.
description available.
Climate Outreach is a British organization.
Service. Get in. About the climate out. Photo. About climate. We're placing. We exist because climate change doesn't communicate itself, even with the increasing number of climate impacts. We help people understand this complex issue in ways that resonate with their sense of identity, values and worldview. Informed consent and support from people across society and around the world creates what we call a social mandate for climate action, and we believe it's how real change happens.
So they've done work in Alberta, as you will soon discover, and well, let's just go there.
App switch, Safari, pages, books, active, books.
This is one of their publications.
Page 4 of 62. The Alberta Introduction, bookmark, The Alberta Narratives Project, ANP. The Alberta Narratives Project is a community-based initiative convened by the Alberta Ecotrust Foundation and Pembina Institute to seek ways of talking about climate and energy that reflect the shared values and identities of Albertans and to provide a more open and constructive basis for conversation. 75 organizations hosted 55 Introduction. The Alberta words, lines. The Alberta 75 organizations hosted 55 narrative workshops around Alberta, making this one of the largest public engagements of its kind. They spoke with a broad spectrum of people including farmers, oil sands workers, energy leaders, business leaders, youth, environmentalists, new Canadians and many more. The project has communicate in this report the narrative workshops. The narrative workshop methodology is similar to that of focus groups. It typically involves 8 to 12 people in a structured discussion guided by a facilitator following a standard script and set of questions. A workshop is different from a standard focus group because of the attention it pays to understanding people's core values and identity. Within the Alberta Narratives Project, discussions were often hosted by peers, who helped to provide a safe, respectful space in which an honest diversity of views could emerge. To further ensure the comfort of participants, the topics of climate change and energy were not introduced until the second half of the discussion. Please see the description of the methodology in Appendix 2 of Report I.
They're calling them workshops. They're more commonly the term here around North America is public assemblies and civic assemblies, and that will come up shortly here.
Toolbar. Page 5. In this report the structure of this in this report speaking rate lines Y quotation, Y tested, the final Y new, the selection of audiences. We chose 8 main groups for this report based on several criteria. First, the priorities and constituencies of the project partners. Secondly, the demographics of Alberta. Thirdly, identification by earlier communications research of the key constituencies that support or oppose action on climate change. Concerning Indigenous and First Nations audiences. The one major audience that has not been included at this time is people with a shared Indigenous experience. Initially we considered making adjustments to the proposed ANP program, but it became clear that moving forward required a new approach developed in collaboration with a broader group of Indigenous community partners. This work is forthcoming.
Okie doke.
Toolbar. Page 6. Climate Outreach Markup, bookmark. This report is therefore most valuable as a primer in the core values and concerns of each audience, helping communicators to construct effective communications using language that resonates. The proposed narratives attempt to distill this language. Language from test narratives can be used with the confidence that it has been tested and found to work. The quotations and new compositions, being untested, should be applied with more caution. It is important to stress that communicators must never just cut and paste language from a report. Throughout the ANP, participants expressed suspicion of over-designed language that sounds like a politician. They demanded that communicators be honest, authentic and respectful, and ideally similar to themselves. We therefore urge communicators to read this report, absorb its key findings and insights into the values and concerns of people living in Alberta. Then put it to one side and explore fresh language drawn from your own experience and the values you share with your audiences. More information on applying these findings is contained in the conclusions.
And just to point out, I will, of course, list all of these sites and all of these documents in great detail, how to access them and download them in the notes, because heaven knows there's nothing worse than sound like a politician.
This is Albertan, but also part of a global process. For more on the Global Narratives Project and the other countries Climate Outreach is working in, visit climateoutreach.org/resources/global-narratives/. Toolbar. Page 7. Climate Outreach Alberta Oil Sands Workers. Introduction. Oil and gas is the connection with the industry has a major influence on people's attitudes to climate change and energy. Contrary to the view of most climate change activists, this influence is less about self-interest than it is about a sense of shared identity. The value, widely noted in this study, that Albertans place on supporting each other and pulling together leads them to defend the industry, and often to dismiss climate change, out of a sense of loyalty to their wider community. As described in Report I, climate campaign messaging that blames the fossil fuel industry closes down the conversation. Many of those who might share concerns about climate change feel that they, too, are being attacked.
There's a lot of commentary here about people feeling that they're being blamed and attacked.
Of the total values, people expressed values that were similar to those found across Alberta. The most commonly mentioned values were integrity and hard work, followed by compassion, respect, authenticity, and kindness. The top 3 values were: 1. Balance and reason. At all levels, people working in oil and gas talked about balancing pros and cons, for example, balancing the local environmental impacts of production against the wider benefits. 2. Ingenuity. The engineers and geologists were proud of their skills, their education, and especially their training as problem solvers. We have a fair degree of intellectual integrity. Communicating climate change. Introduction. Toolbar.
I got that.
Page chooser.
That's an introduction.
Page 7. Page 8. Climate Outreach Albert. In regard to their work. 3. Contributing. In regard to their work, they were most proud of the contribution that they had made to people's daily lives. Not in regard to their work, they were most. Toolbar. Page chooser. Page 8.
Skipping ahead.
Adjust. Page 13. Page 14.
Of course, as this is a video and the text is on screen, if you just want to pause it and read it, you're welcome to, of course.
See Conservatives. Table start. See on server. Introduction. Research has repeatedly confirmed that political worldview is the single most important influence on people's attitudes towards climate change. The term conservatives is used in this chapter to differentiate people holding conservative values, who might be termed small c conservatives, from people who vote for any conservative party, who might be termed big C conservatives. The key point is that this chapter is concerned with people's values, not the political party they support.
Not the political party they support, and yet...
This being said, there is a strong association between holding conservative values and voting for a political party on the right wing. Voting preference is also a very strong indicator of attitudes on climate change. Across Canada, people who vote for the New Democratic Party or Liberal Party of Canada are 50% more likely than those voting for the Progressive Conservative Party to think that climate change is caused by human activity, and are twice as likely to say that climate change is a major threat that will affect Canadians in the next 10 years. 1. In this chapter, values. The values of conservative groups were similar to those found in many other groups: hard work, honesty, integrity, sincerity, accountability and gratitude. 1. Responsibility. Both personal responsibility as well as fiscal responsibility at the level of small government was seen as distinguishing criteria. 2. Continuity. Conservatives see themselves as respecting and conserving the best of the past as a legacy to be built upon and passed on to future generations. 14. Communicating Introduction. Toolbar. Page 15. Respondents were 3. Gratitude. 3. Gratitude. Respondents were especially concerned about a perceived decline in gratitude, which they regarded as the polar opposite of entitlement. It just feels like progressively we're moving from a society of gratitude to a society of entitlement. Toolbar.
Jeez.
Page chooser. Page 15. Adjustable.
Hush! Terms we've run into recently.
Page 20. Page 21. Climate Outreach Alberta. Climate Outreach markup. Introduction. Environmentalists. Table start.
Oh yeah, there's a section on environmentalists. I'm not going to go into it, but just so you know, there's opinions. We have opinions.
Toolbar. Page chooser. Page 21. Page 26. Climate Outreach Alberta. Introduction to rural Albertans. Table start. Rural Alberta. Introduction. Today, while ranching and farming are a defining way of life in rural areas, 3/4 of rural Albertans are employed within service sectors, including energy, or commute to nearby urban centers for work. In terms of demographics, rural communities tend to have older populations, vote conservatively, have fewer university graduates, and have far fewer new Canadians. They are often the most established settlers within the province, sometimes 4th and 5th generation Canadians. Rural Albertans are important because, as a whole, their attitudes to climate change and energy are distinct from urban Albertans and other Canadians. Far fewer think the Earth is getting warmer, fewer support carbon pricing, and less than 1/3 believe the Earth is warming due to human activities. 9. Values. Farmers saw their role as knowledge keepers and stewards of the land, protecting it from detrimental land use changes such as urban encroachment, which was seen to harm not only the land but the community as well. As long as my farm operates, the environment will be just as good or better. When asked for 1. Respect. Respect defined both the group's identity and their concerns. The loss of respect for food and farming and for one's neighbors and elders was seen as a growing problem. We are undervalued. 2. Family and community. For this group, a defining aspect of rural life is family and the commitment to places and practices that bring rural people together. For example, the simple act of dropping in for coffee. 26. Communicating. Introduction. 26. Toolbar. Page 27. Climate Outreach markup. Finally, 3. Integrity/ethics. 3. Finally, integrity/ethics surfaced both explicitly and implicitly as an underlying value of rural people and the farming way of life. Building and maintaining long-term relationships with people and the land, often over multiple generations, was seen to be rooted in a commitment to the hard and often unprofitable work of small-scale family farming as a principled and honorable way of life. Ethical values, app switcher, books, active, Safari,
Do you know the farmer song?
climatearratives.ca, Safari, who we are vertical, Safari, about us, current page, visited, link, actions available,
Yeah, climate outreach, lots of work in Alberta.
skip to main content, in, who we are, heading level 1. Our story, Climate Access is a non-profit organization focused on building political and public support for climate and clean energy solutions by developing and promoting effective communication and engagement approaches. Since 2011, Climate Access has demonstrated the value of going beyond environmental frames and using new narrative concepts that have since become widely used, such as illustrating the interconnectedness between energy use and climate change and emphasizing the need for carbon-free or low-carbon energy. We introduced the idea of shifting from a should we act to a we are acting posture with the preparation frame that places a greater emphasis on the need for communities to ready themselves for current and future climate impacts.
So Climate Access is an American organization. Obviously, they've been around for a while doing stuff similar to Climate Outreach, and I'll draw your attention to the fact that Climate Access also mentions Alberta has been a client of theirs. That was dramatic, wasn't it?
App switcher, Safari, books, active, books, image, books, library, button. Library, Climate Outreach Alberta Narratives Report 2, Climate Communications and Behavior Change.
Climate
Toolbar.
Communications and Behavior
Page
Change.
29 of 54. The illustrates how cognitive in the power of tailoring strategies to audio the illustrates how cognitive and experiential change methods are most effective when climate communications and behavior change. Heading.
This part is called Understanding and Connecting with the Audience.
Toolbar. Page chooser. Page 29. Page 28.
There we go.
Part 2, Understanding and, in Section 1, we outline key components of narratives around global warming that address climate issues. Conveying concepts that can build awareness and concern is critical. Understand and relate to issues such as global warming in a variety of ways based on their social values and where they are at in the behavior change process.
Now, this document does not read as evenly as the other one did, and so I'm going to let you access it visually, and you can listen to what I do, but it kind of massacres it a bit.
These core differences into consideration. For example, offering incentives to choose clean energy are useless if the audience is at an early stage in the cognitive and behavior change process and has social values because their worldview tends to discount environmentalism as overly liberal and anti-authoritarian.
So starting too soon while we're preparing basically the template for these ideas is a waste of time. And they explain
Toolbar.
it better
Page chooser.
on the next page.
Page 28. Page 29. Climate communicate markup appearance search the in the power of tailoring strategy in the when it comes to disinterest the illustrates how cognitive and experiential change methods are most effective when people are at the early stages in a change process. While behavioral change make all the difference, whether help is coming from friends, family members, peer groups, or professional networks. Particularly given that change is a dynamic process and people regularly slip backward in the change process and need support and encouragement to continue forward.
So it's about change and how to facilitate that and make it actually work. And then there's these stages which this researcher has picked up on.
When it comes to global warming, one way to think about the process individuals and organizations typically go through when making a change in thinking and behavior is the following. Disinterest, the I won't change stage. People and organizations stuck in disinterest refuse to accept global warming as real or that it will have serious consequences and reject or even oppose calls to action. This is due to fear, inertia, or comfort with the current state of affairs. They make deliberation, the I might change stage. Individuals and organizations at the deliberation stage are just beginning to pay attention to global warming, but they have not yet determined how, can easily slip back to disinterest. To move to the next stage, the decision needs to be made that action is met with disapproval from peers. Design the I will change stage. People accept that global warming needs to be dealt with and begin to create a plan to act individually or at the organizational and political levels. These actions are assessed in terms of how they would look and feel. For example, an individual at the design stage may research alternatives to their gas-guzzling car, but if they can't imagine themselves driving a smaller vehicle, they might slip back to the earlier stages of change. Moving to the fourth stage of created, making a public commitment to implement them helps ensure there is follow-through. Doing that reduce carbon emissions, such as weatherizing homes or supporting climate policies. This are needed to avoid slipping backwards in the change process. On the other hand, if steps are further changes in thinking and behavior. Defending the I have changed stage. People and organizations begin to integrate their new thinking and behaviors into daily life. Typically 6 months to a year after initial steps have been taken, to apply their approach. Given how the economy is structured and the lack of social support for and rewards are needed, yet at the same time, it can also be exhilarating because all sorts of new opportunities become apparent. List end. 29. Part 2. Toolbar. Page 30. Climate communicate. Address the bookmarked. Address the internal issues people and organizations are grappling with in each of the phases in, and defending, are already working to reduce their carbon emissions. They don't need more facts about the impacts of global warming. Instead, they need information and tools on how to overcome obstacles they face when trying to address the problem. They are therefore more likely people who have met similar challenges.
Now, this document,
Toolbar.
like the other
Page
one,
chooser. Page 30 of 54.
there's 54 pages to this document. The other one I looked at, I only got halfway through that one as well. So these documents listed in the notes are worth looking up if you want to learn more about this
App
stuff.
switcher. Books. Active. Safari. climateexist.
I think, again, the important consideration is treating people with respect. And remember what the Climate Outreach said is that people want to hear from people who are like them.
Who we are. Heading level 1. Front page. Visited. Link. Navigation. Landmark.
KNOCA stands for the Knowledge Network of Climate Assemblies. So again, Climate Outreach was talking about workshops, but they were basically civic assemblies. There's a whole sub genre of those things around, and specifically they call them climate assemblies because they're civic assemblies on climate. So I know this because I took part in a KNOCA panel and I asked this question. It's like, well, what is a climate assembly? Well, it's a civic assembly on climate. So they just it's a jargon thing.
What is KNOCA? Front page. KNOCA. Why has climate? Who is KNOCA? How does KNOCA bring?
Sorry.
Climate assemblies are increased. Why has front page? What is KNOCA? Why has climate? Who is involved? KNOCA is funded by the. How does KNOCA work? Who climate? Why has KNOCA is a European network for sharing best practice on the design and implementation of climate assemblies. It is a go-to place for those seeking considered, rigorous and widely sourced input on the topic, which will strive to strike a balance between academic quality, practical application, impact and accessibility. Why has climate assemblies are increasingly being used in a variety of different European countries at different scales of governance to inform policy responses and social action on climate change. Appetite is growing in countries that have not yet used such processes to explore the possibility of doing so, and to draw on existing experiences and models. As a result of growing and diverse practice, the knowledge and expertise of policymakers, academics, and civil society actors is increasing in the use of such innovative approaches. But this knowledge and expertise is diffuse. KNOCA bring together this varied expertise to explore challenges in the design and application of climate assemblies and promote best practice for those organizing and advocating for climate assemblies.
So Climate Outreach is a member of KNOCA. And as I said, basically the workshops that Climate Outreach was doing in Alberta are civic assemblies. They're called that because it's not a workshop where you're learning something. It's a meeting where you're being consulted for your expertise as whatever you are. So that's the significance of the assembly versus workshop, and the terminology. Climate assemblies are just
What is KNOCA? Heading Level 1.
focused on
Article.
climate.
Landmark. Toolbar. Back. Dim. Our campaign includes objectives. Image. A black circle moreover. Black circle background. Black circle Canada's current climate conversation is reasonably advanced. The conversation is less about whether or not Canada should take climate action, but what type of action to take and how ambitious the action should be. List start.
So this is Climate Narratives. They are Canadian. They're not British or American or Chinese or Russian or even Antarctican. Notice this URL is not climatenarratives.ca. I've been in email contact with the lady listed on this page, Maria Granados, and for quite a while, so they just are not using that URL. However, they do work on climate assemblies and information and communication centered on climate.
Black Circle recent polling has shown that Canadians rank climate change as a top-tier issue, but behind concerns about COVID-19 and healthcare. Other polls have found that a majority feel the government is doing enough on climate, while oil and gas issues are divisive according to province and political party affiliation. Black Circle as such, messaging that connects health, the economy, equity and climate issues is needed in order to engage the public on the right next steps for climate policy, and raise the bar for climate leadership in Canada. Black Circle moreover, climate advocates need messaging to amplify the need for a transition away from oil and gas in order to cut emissions while ensuring workers and communities are not left behind as Canada moves to renewable energy sources. List end.
So discussion of messaging again, the importance of how we talk to people. So this...
Image. Objectives. Our campaign includes a number of small-scale tests on a range of image.
This is energy transitions and message testing. It's a slide deck from a presentation they did based on a report they've done. It's
page 3 of 86.
There's 86 pages here. I'm obviously not going to go down through
page
that.
5 of 86.
So it's her email is maria@climatenarratives.ca, even though that's not her URL here. Again, that will be in the links, so you can ask her more. They've done lots of research, and it's all about communicating these issues.
Download regional fact sheets button.
So last
heading
but
level
not
2
least,
collapsed.
Here's the instigator of all this nonsense, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Their website is hundreds of pages of documentation. This
data for SPM figures is available. See the catalog. Click on H. Return to top. Data for SPM. Click HTTP. Page 9 of 9. Use the links below to access the slides presented at the 9th of August, 2021. Press briefing and a slide deck containing the headline statements and figures from the summary for policymakers.
So this page is, they call it their outreach page, where they basically provided lots of documentation. You can use it to present to people. You can use it just to learn quickly about stuff. They don't address the conversations thing quite as intensely as the others do, but they do try to make it more accessible to the general public. There are media aspects here. There are videos.
Click on datasets under relate. Page 8 of 9. Page 7. Link to the interactive atlas.
There's an interactive atlas.
HTT. Indefinite time. Play.
Videos.
Program. Volume. Choose cap. Settings. Choose. End. Return to top. Separator. Frequently asked questions.
Frequently asked
Heading
questions,
level 2.
which is good for summaries.
Camera. 0. View. Live photo. Timer. Camera chooser. One face centered. Near top edge.
That's me. So I'm going to shut this down. As I said, it's quick and dirty. There'll be lots of
Centered.
notes. There'll be lots of notes. This will be on YouTube.
Near top edge.
And eventually my iPad will stop talking to me. I hope this is useful to help you communicate your concerns, and not just your concerns, but also to empower and engage people to participate in your
One face near top edge.
efforts to help us save the world. Good night.
Short. Sunday, August 29th. Screen recording in progress.